Hello everyone, welcome to Coder Compass. Today we're going to talk about how we're going to make a simple HTML and CSS file, and today we'll cover some of the things like here we can say we'll cover the list item. It may be order list, okay, or unordered list, okay. Then there is a things of we can call about table. Then we will see how a simple form is formed, okay, and many of the things. To get a overview, we have a sample HTML demonstration here. So in here, in this upper portion, this is our header portion as usual, okay. Then this is our, here we can see this is our unordered list portion, so you'll know about unordered list. Then this is our table portion of our HTML code. Then finally this portion is contain the form, okay, form element. To know about all of these elements, first we'll learn all of the individual elements, okay, and then finally we'll discuss about of all the topics altogether. So here today we're going to use a online HTML editor. You can search in Google, then you can pick one of the suitable HTML editor as you like. So I am selecting this one and here as an editor. Okay, so let me first delete all the sample codes here. Okay, we have deleted all the sample codes. So first of all, we're going to talk about the HTML list. So we know there are two types of HTML list here. Sometimes we see uh, like option, like this one option, then another option. So when the options are counted like 1 2 3 4, and those this 1 2 3 4 thing, those are called order list, okay, order list. But when it is demonstrated by a circular dot, okay, or a diamond or rectangle or diamond shape, that time it is called unordered list, okay. So first of all we're going to learn about how to write a order list and unordered list. So to write an order list and order list, so we have to define for order list well, and for another list ul as our element. Then for the element we have to write within the element, uh, sorry, within the element of list li, okay, li means list. We can write like this one, list option, okay. This is our option text here, like this way. Then we have to close the order list and unordered list. So we have to talk about this one. So as this is an HTML editor, for writing a simple code we don't have to write HTML here for demonstrating how the text works, because it is HTML editor. But when you are writing a total code, you have to include this HTML element in your code, okay. So here we're going to directly write our code, and finally we'll use all the features at a time. So in here, first of all, we'll use the order list. So order list start with well is order list. Then we'll have to define the list of our items. So this is our first item. Okay, and this is our first item. So close the list element here. Then write our second listing our second element, and we can give us option of second item as a list. And now we have to close the element. Now finally let's add another list, and it is our let's give it a name of third item, okay. So in this way we can add all the list we want. Now as we have written an order list start tag, now we have to give an int tag. For that we will use an int tag of unordered list, okay. In this way we have completed the our order list. Now we're going to talk about the unordered list, okay. So now write for unordered list ul element, and within this ul element we have to identify our items the list. So let's write first item and close the list element. You can see here our list first item of unordered list has been showing here. So now write the second list of the list item, okay, second item. second item. Okay, then close the list element. Then again same way we are going to write another list here. Okay, so third item. So in this way we have now close the another list element, another list element. So here if we look here in our uh, console, here we can see for the order list, here we can see we have a number of 1 2 3, and for another list here we have a symbol here. Here is the round symbol. You can, it can be a diamond symbol, and it can be any rectangle, any other symbol. We'll learn more about in our other portion. Okay, so let's go back to our HTML editor. So now we'll going to learn about definition list. Okay, let me talk about what is definition list is. Suppose we sometimes we see that there is a word like a word called HTML. Then we want to define that what this HTML means. We write the definition of hyper text, then markup language. Okay, markup language. So in this type of definition word we normally use the DL element. Okay, we normally use the DL element for this type of definition list, and as this is the heading. Okay, uh, so heading or term, so we call it DT element. It's mean definition term element. Okay, it is our DT element, and this is our definitions, description definition. Okay, so this is our description definition, so we write it DD here and close that DD element. So in this way we can write any kind of definition of a uh, sentence in this way. Okay, so let's implement this text in our HTML text editor. Okay, so first we need to use the DL element for our say it's a description list. Okay, now we have to say what's the description term. We have to write HTML because we wanted to elaborate what HTML means. Okay, now close the DT term, DT element, then use the definition, description definition. Okay, now description definition is hyper text markup language. Okay, language. So this is our DD. In the same way we can use multiple one. So if we are using the CSS, we can say that the term is our CSS. Then we want to what's the CSS means. We can see the CSS mean cascading style sheet. Okay, so in this way we can define any term, then we have to close in is the intake. So in this way we can say any of the term here. So in the next we are going to learn about the HTML table. So we all know about what's the table is. It's a like in a table we have certain rows. Okay, then we have some columns, and within these columns there is a this is our called title or heading, title, or sometimes we use heading here. Okay, then we define any data. Okay, if we have any data we can define in data in each cell. So doing drawing a table is quite simple in HTML. Just you have to continuously flow the which code you are writing after one after another. Okay, so for writing for doing a table, first we need to define our table element. Okay, we have to define our table element. Within the table element we normally draw table like row wise, so we have to define the table row element. Okay, and within this table row element, okay, within this table row element here we can see our first column is table heading. Okay, so that time we will use the th element, and within this element we will write heading 1. Do you get it? Okay, then as we are defining let me close this one. Okay, let's take another table row. So if we talk about the second row here, this is table data. Okay, this is table data, so we need to define it with td element means data. Okay, so then close the element in this, then finally if you close the table we'll get a table of its own. Sometimes you won't see this line, so that time you have to use the attribute called border. Okay, you have to use the attribute of border like 1 or 2, so you can give a border so that you can see all the lines have been drawn within them. So let's go to our okay let's go to our HTML editor. Now in our HTML editor we're going to write about the table. So writing the table element, and within the table element we want a table row. So in our first table row we'll have table heading, so our is header 1. Okay, let's close the tag. Then we have another table heading is header 2. Okay, we have another heading. So this is our first row, so we have defined our first row. Now we will define our second row. In our second row we'll define the which cell we are going to use for our data. So we'll again take another row, and within this row we'll define, okay, let me show in this upper portion. Okay, in this table we'll going to define table data. So our data first data is data 1. Okay, within our cell 1 is data 1. So close the ending tag, then again add another table data element, then this is our data 2 element. Okay, this is our table data 2. Now close the table row element, then you have to close the table element finally. So here we can say in this side of the portion, this is our table, but in this our table we have cells and heading and all the data, but our table don't have any border. So we have to define the border within this table portion. We have to define our border in this portion. Otherwise you can use the CSS style. In the later portion of our video we'll use the CSS style code to use the border element. Okay, so now as we are not using the CSS CSS, so we'll define the table border now here. Okay, so let's start. So let's go to our table element starting tag, and in this starting tag we need to add an attribute. So for this our attribute would be border. Okay, and in this border attribute we have to give an border of 1. Okay, let's give a border of 1. Okay, so it is, so if you give the border of like 2, you can see we have more thickness of border 3 or 4. You can see the multiple layer of borders, how many border number of border you want around your data. Okay, so we'll go for 1 for now. Then this goes for our table element. I hope that you have learned this quite well. Okay, so next we're going to talk about our next element. Okay, as we have drawn our table uh, in like this way, header and data, let's draw a full table with some of the elements. Like if we want if we go in a grocery store, sometimes we have a lot of item like apple, orange, and a lot of things, and those of the item has each of them has different values of price. So let's make a simple 3 row table which contains the prices and component which we want to buy and how much they cost. Okay, so let's draw a table. uh, so here we have drawing giving the table element first, then table row, and first of all we'll give the table heading. So table heading, so first of all is for our grocery store we'll give an item and table heading. Okay, here in here you can see if we look here in this portion, these two element is quite uh, too much near each other. So to make a difference between here these two elements, you can use the padding CSS style. Okay, padding if we talk about in a border, this is our element. Okay, element. Then this is our padding portion. Okay, then this is our border portion. Then after that, finally come for our margin portion. Okay, so if we play with all of this in your css file, you will see all of this how it works. And sometimes we don't want any css file padding element, padding attribute. So that time, if you wanted to do, we can use the br element. Okay, it means breaking a line here. Okay, so let me show you how to use it. So between these two table, we are going to use a br element. So let's use a br element. Okay, so if you cut this BR element, you can see we don't have any space. But if you give a BR element, there is a break of line here. Okay. If you add another BR element, you can see we have another break of line here. So in this way, we can add one or two BR element, or you can use the padding element as you are suitable with. So next portion, we have added in a first row our first heading of item. Now we need to use another heading that is called the price. Okay, price of the item. So we are giving another table heading of price of the item. Okay, price of the item. So our first row has been done. Now we are going to close the table row for this. Now it's time for our second table row. And in our second table row, we use the tr element for showing our table row element, and in our tr element we'll use the table data. Okay, table data cell. And first of all, we'll use the item. So let's define the item of apple. So apple, so what's the apple cost? Our apple cost something like, let's see, okay, suppose we have an apple of $2 which cost. Okay, let's close this cell. Next, as we have completed this table row, let's go for a new table row. Okay, so taking another tr element for new table row, let's take a new data. Now define the orange element. Okay, oranges or orange. Okay, orange element. So in this orange element, we have to define how much is it cost. Okay, td table data cell. Okay, let's define it. It cost $3. Okay, so $3 of orange we need. Okay, so let's close the table row. So, and we have defined all the table row. Let's now close the table element. Okay, table element in index. So in this same way, you can see this table also don't have any border. So we are going to give a border here. So we are going to give a border of 1 here. So we have given a border here. So in this way we have learned a lot about our table element. Okay, so next what element we'll going to see. Okay, and next we'll going to see how a form is made. Okay, before making doing a form, we'll talk about a simple form here. Okay, a simple form like we'll ask for your email. Okay, we'll ask for your email and name here. So we'll ask for email and name. Two different things. One is like text type and another is mail type. Okay, so and then we're going to submit it. So before doing that, we need to know about some of the things how a form works. So this is a simple version of the form. So it's not a high version. We later, after a couple of weeks, we'll update our this form element later on. So now we are going to just learn the basics of the how to a form is built. So before you building a form, we have some of the things like we have to define the form element first. Okay, within the form element, we have to define some of the things. So let me erase some of the things. Let me suppose erasing this line. Okay, for form, we have defined there we are going to make a form, and in this form we have to send this form data to somewhere. So when you have a cpanel in your cpanel, in your WordPress site or main of the site, or some user interface, in there you will see that there is many things to store the data. So first of all, in the form we need to define where our data will be stored. So that is for storing the element, we have to say the action attribute. Within this action attribute, we have to define where the form will be. So normally if we see a website, we'll see that like it's if you talk about this site, you can see it has directory like within this programming site there is a HTML directory, and within this HTML directory there is a online compiler. Like a directory is related to one another, so we'll define a directory where the data will be stored. Okay, then we have to say the method how the data will be sent to that storage. So there is two method. Okay, there is two method, and the one is called post. Okay, and another is called get. Okay, so when you are talking about get, that is the data will be sent like a user to in a link way. Okay, but when we need to give some of the security, okay, then the data will be the send data as a part of the, okay, when we going to say it is a post, then the send data as a part of the request body. That will be invisible to the user and usually used for sensitive information. Okay, so when we will ask for a sensitive information, then we will use the method of post. But when we will use the normal text data, that we can use the get data. Okay, so let's again see. So first of all, we'll give the form, then we'll have the action where to store the data. So we have to define the directory where to store. Then we have to define another things, that is method how the data will be sent. So here, for as we are going to send the email, it is a sensitive data, so we're going to use the post here. Okay, so using the post here. So after that there is comes a lot of things, like if we talk about the first things like name. Okay, in this name things you have to suggest enter a value of name. So for that we have to define the things, some of the things like input type. We have to define first input types. So first input types. So this input types is what, it is a text type. Okay, so we will define this is a text type input. Okay, for this name element we have to use because the label for this label we going to use label 4. And for which label, so in this input element we have two element, one is id, then and then another is called name. Okay, so let me define what is id and name. So id is used for in your css or other javascript file, so that time you have to define a things what is your id. Okay, and for using the data in your page. Okay, so name is necessary for server to know which data correspond to which field. Okay, that's time the name is used here. So for CSS type file, we define a specific ID, then we use the name for to server to know which data correspond to each field. Okay, that's why we use the name element. So in here within the data element we will use the same attribute, that is same value, that is name, and this label for this id. So label for this id, that will be name, label for name, and here the label is we're going to use the name. So don't confuse yourself. Here the name, so there we can see we will use this name and a ame. So this name is this one. Okay, name, then we look close, then we'll close the label. Okay, close the label here, and after that we have defined the id to name, then we'll where the data to be stored, that will also be name element, then we'll close it. So this way we can use the label input and input element. Okay, and there is a lot of method to input type element. Here you can see this is the input type of text, and for email it will be written email here. Okay, here also will be email here because the id name then will be also email here, and the name will be also email here because we want to add the same name for each of them. So sometimes we can see we have some of the options like checkbox. Okay, like like we have a checkbox someone to have to tick and give a subscribe or a lot of portion. So for that we will use the input. Okay, that time we will use the input type. Okay, that will be checkbox. That will be checkbox because we are going to check using a checkbox, and the name for it will be subscribe. Okay, we normally use same things so that it may don't be more confusing. And for some time you can see a radio button for clicking here, like some or sometimes when we ask for what is your gender, male or female, that time we have to some radio button. So that time it's like we have to give the input type, and that time the type will be radio button. Okay, radio for radio button, then you will use the uh, name and value, all other things. Okay, name, that will be gender, and within that there will be a radio button. So in this way you use the checkbox and radio button. We'll talk about in our future video, but today we'll just learn about how to take input type text and email type text. Okay, so let's go for our HTML code now. So let's go to our HTML editor, and okay, let me first go back to our cursor mode. Okay, we have come back to our cursor mode, and in our cursor mode let's type. So we are going to create a form. So starting with a form element, and we have to type the action where to store the data. So here we'll store the submit form .php. So this submit portion won't work because we are not working in a cpanel or any other editor. So this action won't be work. But when you are using a cpanel or other, make sure to copy the directory where you want to store here. Okay, then method of how we will going to store it. So as it is a email and other things, it's a sensitive data, we are going to use the post here. Okay, so we are going to use the post here, then the label for. So for which we want to use the label for. We want to use the label for the name, and the our it will be name slash label. Okay, so we have defined the label here. Okay, let me give a break here so that there we have some of the space here. Okay, okay, we have defined the label here. Now we have to say what type of input we want. So we want input type. So we want input type of text here. So we have defined, we have one input type of text here, and our input ID. So for using the ID, this four and the ID value is same. So input ID for name, and then we have to define a name for our this ID, and as this is a name, so it also contains the acronym of name. Okay, now we have to close this. So this time we can see we have a text to write here. Okay, we have a text to write here. Then if we talk about a lot of things here, uh, let's see, let's add our email here. Okay, for that we'll use the label for our email. So what this email writing will be, it's your ID. So now give the title of the email. Okay, now close the label. Okay, there isn't no any gap between them, so we're going to use a break here. Okay, another break here, so to give a space. Then let's define the input. So what type of input we want? So input type, it will be email type input. Okay, and for ID we'll define which ID will give. This ID is defined where we're going to use this, when we're going to use the CSS and JavaScript file. So this also giving the same name, the email. So it was a text type, it was a sorry, it was a email type, and it was a text type element. Okay, so if you get confused about the name, email, and ID, if you get confused for this four element ID element, try to practice them more, or if you don't get it, try to give the same name for all of this, because all things goes is related to the same element. So also giving the name of email, now closing it. Okay, so our level has been, so now we need to have a submit button. To get this submitted, we need a submit button. So for the submit button, we'll go to say input type. So our input type is input type, the type will be submit. So the our type is submit, and the value for the submit is, so if we close this submit, you can see, let's see, we have closed this submit. So sometimes we have to say which value it contains, so that time we have to define the value for each of them. So our value is submit. So the value for is selected for this type is submit. So this way we have drawn our form. So we have given our form completed. So this way we have completed our form portion. So let's, if we talk about many of the things, so let's define how our CSS portion works in the next portion, how the CSS portion is, and we how we can decorate more our HTML file. Okay. So let me clear up our this text editor and also our this CSS file. Okay. Okay, and now this portion of our video, we're going to first of all write a text. Okay, then we'll give a color to this text. Then we'll make this text a bold text. For writing the text, we'll use the HTML code, and for we'll use the HTML code for this portion, and for this portion we'll use the CSS code. Okay, so let's first of all let's write our text here. So first of all we'll write our P for paragraph element. Then within a paragraph element, we'll use the text like, say, highlighted text. Okay, so we have said we have a text here. So for adding a CSS style, we need to define a class here. Okay, so there are two things, one is class, another thing is ID. So let me define the difference between a class and ID. So class can be used in many of the within the many of the element. Okay, within the many of the element, but when we use the ID, and then it is used for unique element for any unique element. Okay, element. And there is different when we define something as class, we, if it is a built-in HTML element, then we can write it directly like h1. But if we sometimes like in here, if we write like this way, let me show you. If we write like in this way, class equal to like highlighted text, so let's give it a name highlight. So this writing the highlight here is not an element. So for that element, for defining class, we need to give a dot before it. Okay, in the CSS file we need to give a dot before it. And for if we use a ID element, okay, suppose like P like ID equal to okay, hi h light. Okay, if we talk about h light, okay, like this way, then text, then slash P. And for this h light ID defining in CSS, we have to define it by hashtag. Okay, we have to define it by hashtag h light like this way. So those are the difference between when using a class or using ID. For using a class, you can write it directly if it is an element, or if it isn't an element, you have to give a dot before it. And when you are using an unique CSS file for an unique element, that time we use the ID here, and for the ID element we have to define it by a hashtag. Okay, so let's go for our text here. So here we have to define the CSS file. So we have to, as it isn't any element, so we have to write a dot before it, then write the highlight here. Then we have to define the attribute, which attribute we want to add. We want to add the color attribute here, and for the color attribute we want the text color to be blue. Okay, then for we want it to be bold, so we are giving the font weight. So the font weight will be bold, it can be bold, italic, or many more according to your choice. But here we have written the highlight CSS class file, but it isn't applying here. So before editing here, we have talked about that we have to follow some of the criteria. Like when we are writing HTML, we have to define the HTML tag, then header file, and many more. But as it is a built-in IDE, so don't need to define it here. But in other place, we have to define it everywhere. And another thing is that as we have to combine this style file to HTML, we have to link it. Okay, for link it, we use the link. Then relation is style sheet. So this relation is style sheet. Then the href, where the reference will be found. The reference will be found style.css. So that time the reference will be style.css. So it is like the directory where the style file is located. Okay, this is our direct uh, directory where this style file is located. Then if you could add this text to before here, then this text will be highlighted here. Okay, let me show you here. So first of all, let me go to the my cursor mode here, and after going to my cursor mode, let me define like linking. This relation is style sheet, and this essentially location is href reference style.css. Now close it. Okay, this time you will see the text is quite different than previous. Okay, I think I have missed some of the things. Okay, let me correct it here. So here link. Okay, let me make a text color. Okay, give it a text color. Give it a text color of. Okay, we have found out the problem. So here the problem is we haven't uh, defined properly the tag. So here our class file is highlight, so we have missed a T here. Okay, we have missed a T here, highlight. Okay, let's see here the text is highlight P class. Okay, highlight. Then within this, okay, let me define. uh, okay, let me define that we have written this text highlight is in the wrong way, so we have miswritten the word the highlight here. That's why the text css file wasn't taking. So make sure when you're writing, try to recheck all the lines that you have written is that are properly written. Okay, so this time this our highlight text and our this highlight class file matched, so that's why our this color is being changed. Okay, so next we'll define a many more css file like this one. So first of all we have defined that one. Now we're going to define like a id. Okay, for a id, so for defining an id is let again select a paragraph id. Okay, so let me give a div, div id. So what is the division means? Okay, we have talked about, we know, in a css in a html file we have some of the section, like when we are writing a header a portion, then here we have a footer portion, Then we have like a lot of things like we have here like our music portion, then we have our photo section, so then we have a text section. So we define a section, we define it within a section to separate from each other. In the same way, the div element also separate those element within its body. Okay, so by using the div element, we are separating each element, which class or which id it will take. Okay, in the same way. So let's go for our, okay, let's define it say id of header, because header is a unique element, so we are writing it as a id, not a class. If you define it as a class, it also work in the same way. So let's write a text. We are going to write a header content here. Okay, header content here, and let's close the division element. Okay, so let's now we have to add a header CSS file, and for this header CSS file we have id here, so we have to define it by using a hashtag. So we have to define it by hashtag because it is the id element, and within this hashtag let's write the CSS file, that is header. Now give the bracket. Now we have to define the attribute. So now define the attribute the background color. Okay, so the background color, we want to add a background color of light gray. Okay, light gray, a background color. Okay, we have defined a background. Now so padding. Padding means we have defined padding is the space separation of space that we want. So let's add a padding of 10 px. Okay, so this way now close the element. If you don't close the element here, your HTML file won't work, because here it is an automatic HTML editor, so it is showing the code when you are writing line by line. But when you are writing in a proper code in a website, if you don't finish your code, it won't show the outcome. Okay, now let's talk about another portion of CSS file. Okay, so this time we'll see the division like a class element. So we have defined the division by a id element, a id attribute. Now we're going to define this division with a class attribute. So we are defining the division element with a class attribute, and this class attribute we are defining it a container. Okay, so defining it a container, and within this container we are using a p element, paragraph text. Okay, our paragraph text will be text inside container. Okay, you can write anything, text inside container. Okay, let's close the paragraph element, then let's close the our division element. So now we have to, as this is a class attribute, so we have to give a dot element. As this isn't any element, so you have to give a dot before it. So we are defining by a dot before it, then container. So container, then we can see within this container we have to define only the p element. So within the container we want to only define the p element. We don't want to affect another element. Suppose we have another element like a image file here. Okay, like see, let's talk about image, like an image file here. Okay, we don't want to affect other portion of the element, so that's time we have to define a class within a class. Okay, so we are defining class a p class paragraph element within a container class. Okay, so now we will define it color. Okay, let's define color. Let's define color to green. Okay, green. So the color has been changed. Here we are using the text for our color. We normally use the hexagonal hex code. Sometimes use HLSL code, to RGB code. Which color you are comfortable with? HTML support all of them, so you can use any of them, like hex code, RGB code, and many more. Okay, so we have defined our this portion. Now as we have learned a lot of things about HTML and style file, now we're going to try to build a site that we have seen previously, like one of this one, or how this kind of site is created from the bottom to sketch. Okay, so before defining some of the things, let me talk about some of the things here. Okay, Okay, so first of all, let me clear out all of the style file and all of the HTML file. So first of all, here we're going to talk about how a HTML file start from. Okay, so normally we know the gist of it. Okay, so an HTML file normally starts by writing the start HTML tag. Okay, and then by everyone knows the closing HTML tag, but within them there is a lot of things, like sometimes when you're using a dynamic site you have to define a lot of things and criteria about your site. Okay, so here first of all we have to talk about what type of writing we are writing. So that time we suppose we normally write the doc type HTML. So what this doc type HTML means here? So in here, this doctor HTML means it is defining that it is a HTML5 website or element. If you search it more about, you will get all the answer. So that's why we first of all we define it is a doc type of HTML5 by using a doc type HTML code. Then sometimes you can see in many sites they have many country they have like many languages, like European language in this their website, English language in this, or the Russian language in this, how they add their language. So we want to define our website is written in a language of English. So that time we use the lang attribute, and within this lang attribute we define en for English value. Okay, so within this lang attribute we define the English value. So then we have the head of an HTML file, and we have a closing head tag, and between them there are a lot of things, like how what is our HTML file written of. Okay, so let's define whatever character we use. So for that we need to use the meta element, and within this meta element we use the char set. Okay, char means character set attribute. And within this character set attribute we use utf hyphen 8. Okay, what this utf hyphen 8 means? This utf hyphen 8 is like it is a document. Okay, universal character set that supports all the character, okay, that include special characters, symbols, and many more. That is we are using the character set, we are defining it more clearly. If you don't define that, that's also okay, but if you define it, clarify in every kind of cPanel and many more editors. Okay, to become a more clarify. So then comes another things, that is we when we build a website, it won't run it normally run with on a lot of mobile and desktop, and all of those mobile and desktop has different screen size. So we have to define what kind of website our have to our what kind of adjustment our HTML site need to be adjusted. So we have to define the meta element to our name viewport. So how our website will be viewed. Okay, so we want our content to be equally zoomed, means if it is a screen of 100 by 1080 by 1900 by 20, or a mobile phone, it should take the overall screen 100%, overall screen 100% ratio, so that it can fill the website within that boundary of that screen. So content, within that content we have to write the wide of the HTML site will be device wide. Okay, this means if what your device wide is, that is also our website wide is. Okay, the both are same. And the initial scale, so we use the initial scale, like we want our website to be shown at 100% zoom. Okay, so that's why we use these two elements. One is called name viewport to show our website in your properly in your screen, and that our content, our HTML website wide will be our device wide. and initial scale 1.0 means it will take the 100% zoom of your skin. Okay, then we have to define a lot of things like what's the title will be. So titles means if we see here, this is our title. Okay, if we open a website like this, what it shows, that is the title of the website. Okay, so here by adding the title here, we'll see in this editor here the title will be. Okay, okay, let's add a title here. So we're adding a title here, and the title will be, let's say, my bio. So we're making a bio site. Okay, title. So here, as I have talked about, we have seen our website title in the top of the browser tab. Okay, then then another things, in the previous time, when we have written a HTML code and our CSS code here, those two weren't linked together, so you have to use a link element to link this HTML to this CSS code. Okay, so let's write the link element here. So we are going to use the link element. Link is a relation between them, is style sheet. Okay, style sheet. And then the link element relation is style sheet. And we have to define the href, or means where the directory of the style sheet. So here the directory is style.css, as I am doing in the same directory, and it may be varied from, because it may be in your C panel, it may be in your offline laptop directory, it may be anything. Okay, so make sure you have given the proper directory here. Then our first portion of this has been quite done. Now it's time for our body portion of the CSS file. Sorry, HTML file, body portion. Here we have at the start tag. Okay, let's add the int. Okay, let's add the uh, int. Okay, let's add the int at the int tag of the body. Within that, our all the content is situated. So within the body element, we have some other portion. One is the header portion. Okay, and within this header portion, I will use that a text of about me. Okay, about me here. Okay, I have defined about me here. So some of the things we have talked about in our previous video, that here, so the element, okay, h1 means heading 1. It has the highest height of everything, heading 1. Then it's gradually become h2, it is quite smaller than that one, heading 2. Then we have h3, then it is then smaller than that one. In the same way, every heading got smaller. So there is a lot of heading like h4, h5, h6, and many more. You can see in the Google. Okay, so we have defined our heading, and it is like h1. We have defined about me. Now write a text. For writing a text, normally we use the p element, that is called paragraph. So here you define the p element. So hello, I am the coder compass. Here's a little about me. Okay, little about me. So in this way, now you have to close the tag. So make sure you have written the start tag and close it. Some of the elements like img image, then we are like giving a break in a line. Those elements don't have a in tag. Okay, but those elements which have a closing tag, make sure to give a close tag. Then we have to write in our header portion. Now close this header file. Okay, we're closing this header portion. So we have written our HTML file here, but we need to decorate it. For decorating it, we use the CSS file. So let's go hop into our CSS file here. Okay, so in our CSS file, okay, let me say one things. All the things in here are within the body element. Okay, within the body element. So let's first give the body element decoration, then we'll give a header element decoration. Then within the header element, we have to define a lot of things one by one. Okay, let's go for it. So first of all, I will define the body element here. So for the body element, I am giving first of writing the body element, and as this body element is a element, so we don't have to give any dot or a hashtag before it, so we can write directly the body element. Then we have to define the attribute. So let's define the font family, what font we want. Okay, the font family we want a Arial font. It's the common font Arial, everyone knows about it. Okay, Arial. Okay, then we have written another thing, we will write it, that is Shen Serif. Shen Serif, it is the category of that. Okay, sometimes you see like one is writing this Arial, then write comics, then Times New Roman. Okay, like is in the comma. So what this means, when one of the text, let me even show. Okay, like then comics, then Time New Romance. Okay, like this way. Like it means that when one of the element fails, then it will be uh, this system will be taken. If this fail, this system will be taken, because all when your website is running in a browser or any kind of offline device, what the compiler have, the coding coder don't know, so that time they use a multiple code family, sometimes you see multiple code family in there, so that if one of them value is failed, so that another can be replaced with that. Okay, so we are just using two of them, like Arial. If Arial fails, we'll use a common category of sans serif what. Okay, so let's go again. So let me delete all the extra portion. Okay, so we have given our text here, then let's define. Okay, make sure to give the close tag first. Okay, because if you don't give the star and close bracket, it won't work. Now let's define the background color. Background. Okay, background color. In the background color, let's give it, uh, we are using the hexagonal code. Okay, you can use as your suitable color, then use the text color, and the text color we are using the 333. Okay, it is quite like gray color. Okay, you can see it's quite like a fading gray color. If you see, it's quite like a fading gray color here. Okay, we have given that, then we have to define the margin. So we have talked about the margins. We won't have any margins, so we are giving the margin to 0. Now we are going to you can change all this value. You change all this value and see what's happening in your website, so you can learn how, if you change the one color, which element of the color is changed, so you can change any color as you want. Now it's time for the header. Okay, in the header portion, in the same way, we'll use the background color. This header is don't have any dot or hashtag, because it isn't an ID, and also it isn't it is a element. Okay, that's why you don't have a dot before this header. Then background. Okay, background color. Okay, we are using the background color same. Okay, for the header we are using the background color of the same as the text, but we'll change the text color. Okay, we're making the, as this is the background of black, we are using a text color of white. Okay, then padding means we have says that space between the border and the element. So let's have a border and element difference of 20 pixel. Okay, 20 pixel. Now for the text align, so let's align the text within the center. Okay, just align the text with the center. Now use the close bracket. Make sure to give all the close brackets and make sure to spell all of the things is right in the right way. Text align. Okay, I have missed the T here. Okay, so be careful when you are writing. There might be a lot of silly mistakes like mine, like I have forget to give T and their H and T and a lot of things. So make sure you have given all the code properly. So let's go back to our HTML code, and as we have given the header portion, let's go for our body portion. So in the body portion, we'll first let's create a section. So we have talked about there in section means we are defining in a few moments ago. We have said when we have a lot of portion, we want to divide a lot of portion in our body. We use the section element to separate them. Okay, to section element. And when we want to give an individual style, then we separate them by division element. Okay, separate them by division element. So make sure to remember this section element and this division element class file. Okay, so now in our body we're going to define the section element. So we are defining a section element, and within this section element, let me say I wanted to add my skills. So we are using header 2. You can see in the first person, okay, let me write the header 2 is my skills. Okay, my skills header 2. Let's close the tag. So if you see here in here, you can see I have used the header 2 here. Sorry, I have used the header 2 here, and if you see here I have used the header 1 here. Okay, the header one is it has a bit bigger heading, so this text has a bigger font size, and this is header 2, so it has a smaller font size compared to this one. So it's a h1 header and this is h2 header. Okay, okay, so let's again go back to our design HTML code. So now we'll define my skills by using a unordered list. So for unordered list, you use the UL element, and within this element, you have to define what kind of things you know. So we're using the unordered list, the list. Okay, the first list I know the HTML as I am learning. Okay, now close the list. Then second thing is I also know the CSS, and all that is also I am using the list here. Then if I wanted to draw as a create a website, many people use PHP, JavaScript, and many of them more. Normally it is seen that many people learn JavaScript within that. So I think in future we will also learn the JavaScript also now at JavaScript here, and close the list. So finally, as we have defined all of the lists, so we have to close the in tag of the unordered list. So make sure you have given the starting tag and the in tag. So we have defined my skill set and HTML set and many more. But in here we can see if we go to style file here, it is this style is from this body element. Okay, this style is from this body element, but I want to define my this another list by my own class. Okay, so that's why I will add another I will use another CSS file. Let's see, let's define it is unique for this element, so we're going to use the ID features. Okay, so ID class. So for the ID class we have to define it by a hashtag ID class. Let's say we'll use the skills, and within the skill we'll change some of the characteristic of this unordered list. Okay, so let's first give an ID to my HTML section. So in this unordered list, okay, let me define. Okay, let's give this CSS file to in this within this section. So section ID. So ID means when we are using an unique class for in each element. Okay, for a unique element. So this ID will be skills. Skills. Okay. So let's go back to our style CSS file, and in our style CSS file, let's define all of the value. So let's take skills, and then give a opening bracket and then a closing bracket, and within that bracket let's write. Okay, we have another things here. If I give a value of style, it will be added to overall things, but I just only wanted to add within this skill class. We want to add only within to this unordered list. So within this skill element we wanted to use this within unordered list. Within the skill class we want to use it in the unordered list element, and in this unordered list element let's say list style. Okay, list style. Okay, let's set as you can see it is in round shape. Let's use it a square. Okay, you can see the shape has been changed to a square shape now. Okay, now use the padding, the space between the border and the element, thus as the body padding to 10x. Okay, then use the text align. Okay, text align Now use it to center. Okay, we have used it to center. So all of the things has been added here, like as we have talked about. Okay, let's do another things. Let's go back to, okay, if we also wanted to add this skill file to center, that also can be done. If you want to like add only to this, like see if I show you like the, say if you want to add this skill, then if we add like text align, then it will be center. Okay, you can play it like this way. It will be used for overall that time. Now it is using only for another list for the center. Okay, let's see another things here. Another thing is that we have defined the skill ID for this honor list. But if we see in here we have our this header 2. Okay, this header 2 element, we haven't defined this header 2 element css file. That's why it is taking the body element. So now we want to define from this body element to h2 class element css file. For that, let's go back to again the css file, and before that, let's define the heading 2. For the heading 2 element, let's define it color. Okay, define it color. Okay, that's something like gray. Then let's define the text align. Yes, text align to center. Then define it to margin. We want some gap between all of this. Margin top. Okay, margin top is there is a we want gap between here to here. Margin top is 20 px. Okay, now close it. Okay, so for h2 portion our this code has been added, and for skill portion our this portion has been added. Now again, let's go back to our css, let's go back to our HTML file, and in our HTML file we have done one of the things. Now let's draw a table. So we have learned about a lot of things in our drawing, learn a lot of things in our HTML file, how to draw a table. So first of all we'll use the row wise method. So as it is a about me or some kind of a bio type site, so we'll define a qualification. Okay, so our qualification will be like our which degree we have gotten. Okay, and from which in institute, and this type of we want to draw this type of table. Okay, for our bio here. So let's go back to our HTML file. So we know that for doing those type of things, we need to create a table element. Okay, for within a table element, and for drawing a row we need to give the tr element. You know that for tr element, and for heading we have to give the th element, and for data we have to give the td element. Okay, so I think you have remembered all the portion how we'll draw a table here for our bio. So first of all, let's create another section. Okay, so we are creating another section, and for I am giving this a class of id. Okay, so this for this our identity will be education for our css file, education. Now close this section. Okay, let's give a closing section here. Okay, let's giving a closing section here, and within this here we'll write, let's see, our heading 2. Okay, as previously we have give the heading of skills, let's give a heading of education. Okay, giving a heading of education. Okay, we have given a heading of education. Now within this education we have to draw a table here. Okay, we are going to draw a table here. Okay, we're going to draw a table here, and In this table, we are in our table row. First row will be our table heading. So first our table heading will be degree. Okay, degree. It will be table heading. Then our second in our first row, our second table heading will be our institution. Institution. Our second table heading will be our institution. Then close this table row. Then taking another table row. So we are taking our second table row. In our second table row, we will define the data. So in our first data, we'll define our degree. So we can define our bachelor degree. Okay, let's close the table data. In our second portion institution, we can name our university name, from which university we have graduated. Okay, in this way we can add the table data. Okay, and then this row has been completed, we can close the table raw tag. Okay, then in the end we can use the table in tag. Okay, in this way we can, okay, let me clear up some of the space so that it looks good. Okay, so our section 2 has been done. In our section 2 we have done a lot of things, like we have drawn our tables and given some of the values here. And in this table we can see that in this table we don't have any table border or line. For that we have talked about in a previous way, previously, that we have to define the border, okay, for giving a border here. And as we are giving having a CSS file, we will define all of them things in our CSS file. Okay, let's go back to our CSS file here. And in our CSS file, let's first give a proper value for our table element. So for our table element, let's say for our table element, let's give the table width to be 100%, because we want to use the overall whole space of the web page. Okay, 100% table width. Okay, make sure you always use the close tag and insert close bracket and insert in bracket. Okay, table width. Then we have to define our table margin. Okay, let's set the margin to 0. If 0 is not happening, they can give it a auto. Okay, then border collapse. Okay, we want the border to be collapse. So use the collapse here. There is a lot of features. Okay, so we are not having the gist here. So we will see our table properly when the border will be given. Okay, so we will give the border in our table header and table data cell. Okay, in our table header and table data cell. So when we have same value, like our table header and table data have the same value, we can write them by using comma, because our table header and table data cell has the same value. So that's why we can write table header and table data element by separating by comma, then giving the opening bracket, then giving the closing bracket, and within the bracket we will define all the value. So first of all, we're using a padding of 10, the distance between border and the element, so 10 px. Okay, so defining a distance of 10 px. Then we are defining the border. So our border will be 1 px. Okay, 1 px. I want it to be solid and dotted means if you zoom it here, you can see there is a dotted line here. Okay, the difference between solid and dotted is like this one. Okay, and then we have defined it dotted or solid, which one. Okay, giving the solid value, then define the color. So I'm giving the color this one, like a gray color. You can give any color you want. Then use the text align. So I want the text align to be left, at the left. Okay, so in this way you can define your table border and other things. So it's time for our last portion of our HTML. So our today's last portion is our creating a form. Okay, so creating a form, and for creating a form, we are going to use the section. So same ways, let's take a section. So I've given a starting section, and then use a closing section. Within this two section file, we are going to make our table. Sorry, make our form. Okay, so we're going to make our form here. Okay, let me give it more space. We'll clear up those spaces because we want this text to be higher. Okay, we'll delete all these spaces in later. So in here, to build a form, first of all, we need to give this section. So let's first define what this section CSS content will be. So our CSS ID will be contact. Okay, contact. And within this context CSS ID, let's define the heading 2. So this heading 2 will be contact me. Okay, let's use contact me. Now close the heading 2. Now for form, okay, now we are creating a form for using the form element. And now at the action, okay, here the action, I'm giving hashtag. In this hashtag you have to replace the directory. Okay, you have to replace the directory where you wanted to uh, sorry, you have to replace the directory where you wanted to submit your form data. Okay, for with this hashtag, replace with your directory where you want to store your form, send your form data. Okay, and now we'll define some of the things we have already talked about how to create a form. So first of all, we're going to use the label. So our label here will be name. Okay, or here label will be name label. And our input, okay, our input, okay, here I will input type. So my input type is text here. Okay, my input type is text here. And now we have to the input. So the input, we have to define an ID for we can use that ID in our CSS JavaScript and other inner file to define a lot of characteristics. So we're giving this a ID of name. Okay, so ID of name, and this label is for our, okay, this label is for our ID. Label is for the ID of name. Okay, the ID of this name. Okay, then we have to define other things, that is what name the data will be stored. The data will be stored in the name. Okay, so don't get confused. This is our attribute name and this is our element name. So in here, don't get confused by some of the things, like here our this label is name. Okay, then our text type, what kind of text type we want a text type, input type of text here. Okay, then the thing is what we need an ID for our JavaScript and other internal file to identify that things, that way giving a ID. So this ID, for this day, what we are going to label for, we are labeling for this ID name. Okay, and which in which value it will be saved, it will still be to the name value. Okay, and here this name, this ID, this type, and for all of these are attribute, and their value is this text name and name. This is our their value. Okay, so don't get confused within the attribute and the value, what's they define. Okay, let's give a break. Okay, let's define some of the things. Okay, let's give a another things of our email. For that we are going to use the label, we're going to use the label of email. Okay, now is the close tag of the label. Now input. Okay, for input we are going to use the input type. So this is our input type of email. Okay, the input type is email, and here we can see the input type is email, and we need to define an ID for it. Okay, so we are defining an ID for it. The ID is email, and the label is for this ID. So label is for the label is for the ID of email. Okay, email. And now we have to store the value in somewhere. So the value will be stored into name of the name. Okay, sorry, name of the email. The name attribute will be email. Email. So our this portion is done. Now we have to submit it. For the submit, we have to use the input type. Input type. The type will be submit, and although it's a value has the value, so here the value means what the text will be, it will be shown. So here the text will be shown sent message. Okay, the value means what the text will be shown here, that is the value here. Okay, so now we have to close the form, so giving it an intake of form. So now deleting this extra space that we don't need here. Okay, we have closed this form here. So in this later portion, let's also close this space, because we aren't going to add any HTML portion here. Now it's time for our CSS portion. Let's decorate our this form portion. Okay, for decorating our this form portion, let's go to our style.css file, and this style.css file, let's say some of the things. Okay, here we will use some of the things like flex. Okay, let me define some of the things that is called flex. Okay, what is the flex means? Okay, we have some of the display mode. Okay, some of the display mode. One display mode is called inline. Okay, in inline it means it will be shown in the same line. Then we have the we have another thing is called flex. Flex means we have flexibility within this we will use the flex for our flexibility to send this email portion to in this here, and this to in this lower portion. Okay, then we have another portion that is called block. Block means it takes the full wide of the screen, that is called the block. And if you play with them block inline flex, you will learn about them. So here we'll use the flex for the flexibility of the content wide. Okay, yeah, sorry, for the flexibility of the alignment. Okay, for the flexibility of the layout alignment, we are going to use the flex here, display flex. Okay, let's write our CSS file. So first of all, we're going to start with the form. Okay, so with the form, so let's write the form form. So as it is an element, we don't have to give any dot or hashtag. Now within the two bracket, now write the display. Okay, display. We want flexibility in display. And what kind of flexibility? We want alignment. Okay, align item, align item. Okay, make change each of the attributes and see what happens. Okay, just play with the attributes, and after changing each of them, you will see what's the difference has been shown in all of that. Okay, so first of all, we're going to change the text alignment items. So we want two items to be at the center. Okay, but as it is in inline, it isn't showing in the center. We aren't getting our visualization that we wanted. So we want to identify the flex direction, how uh, how we wanted to display all this layout. Okay, I want the flex direction to be column wise. Okay, column wise. Okay, now see how the flex works. First we set the display to be flex, means we want flexibility within the layout. Here by using flex, we want to do the flexibility within the layout. Then after getting flex, we have to define, although we have defined it to center, it wasn't same as that. Then we define the flex direction, how we want it to be flexible. We want to be into a column wise. So all of our data has been, or all of our layout has been re located as the column wise. Okay, so let's go back again there and change all of the values that might give a good overview. So here we can see it isn't giving a good view. So let's give a wide. It's okay. Let's give a wide of 400%. And margin, let's give it a margin of 20 px of auto. Okay, giving it to auto is giving is setting the boundary to auto. If you don't sometimes you are not weren't getting how much distance or padding or margin I wanted to give, then you can use the auto features, because it sometimes automatically sets its value which is suitable for its decoration. You can see all of them. Okay, so now we have to define the form inputs. So we have defined a lot of inputs in the form. Okay, so first of all we're going to in form. So we know we have to define form. Then within that form we have an input attribute, and for that input attribute and we have to define the type. Okay, for the type text. Okay, type text means for our name. For the type text means in our name here. And for name the type is text. We'll change for this attributes. So make sure you know the difference. In the previous year we can see within the skill I class skill id, our element was unordered list. And now within this form element we have an input type of text. Okay, and for defining this we are using the third bracket here. And as we know, if we want to define one or two things, similar things, we have to separate them by commas. So we have to separate them by the commas because we have another form input. Okay, another form input that is type is email. Okay, that type is email. Okay, so you are defining that also, that type is email. Now using our third bracket, and within the third bracket we will define all of our values. Okay, so we are defining the white to be, and this two elements white to be 100%. Okay, so we want them to 100% of the page. Okay, so 100% of the page. So you will change the value and see what the difference it makes. Okay, by that you will learn of each value what is given. So means padding 10 means within this form element, within this element and the distance we want the padding of 10 distance. So there is upper value and lower value of 10 distance here. Okay, then if we talk about the margin. Okay, margin here. Okay, let's give a margin of 10 px also for a better visualization. And sometimes if we don't need, so you can give it to a zero margin, that also work. Now let's give a border. Okay, let's give a border of 1 px, and we want the border to be solid. And okay, let's see the difference in the border. The color has been changed here. Okay, see the difference one piece and the solid, and then give the color. Okay, if you wanted to see more, you can wider it more. Like if I give 5 px, you can see what's the difference it is making, the border of the blank box. Okay, so now we have to we have defined these two border types. Now form types. Now we have to define the input type of this submit button. Okay, so now for the submit button, submit button, so the uh, form input, then the type is submit. Okay, type is submit. Now give the third bracket, a second bracket, and another second bracket, and within that we'll define the below. So now set the background color. Okay, background color for this button. Okay, we are going to talk about this button here. Okay, so background color for this button is, let's give it a blackish color. Okay, now we have to define the text color. So as it is a black color button, so now give it a text color of white. Okay, the contrast is quite good. Okay, giving a text color of white. Now setting the border. Okay, now set the border to none. We don't want any border here because we want it to slim button. Okay, now is the padding. So padding is we are defining the distance between the element and the border. So we are giving, if I have a small space, let's get a 10 ex space or give a 20 px space, which one we can get. Then cursor. Okay, for the cursor that will be pointer. Okay, you can see here my mouse is like a mouse. Now here if you change it is pointer. Let me delete this. Okay, okay, deleting this. If you see now, it isn't changing. My mouse cursor isn't changing. So when we change the cursor to pointer, okay, here you can see my mouse cursor is changing to a pointer. Okay. Now another thing is here you can see the color is not changing. So sometimes this thing when we are trying to pressing a link or hover on something, its color is changed. So we can also change the hover color. So here we're going to change the hover color. Okay. So from input now giving the third bracket for type, input type, because this type is within this input uh, element. So input type is submit. Now close the submit. Now we will use the semicolon and now write hover. And if now we define anything, that will be for our hovering value. So now close that, and within that we will define all of the value that we need. So where we just want to change the background color. If someone hovered that and we want that for a better visualization, we want also that the background color need to be changed. So let's define a background color. Okay, we have defined a background color. So if you hover your mouse there, you can see there is a white shade. Okay, you can see there is a white shade in that there, and also for the cursor pointer, the pointer was changed here. So in here, this was our code, and you can see you have done a quite good job by following all of these things step by step. I think you have learned a lot of things, and if you face any problem and many more things, you can write down in our comment box and we can help you more. So try to learn more, and thank you for being with us. Hopefully you will watch more video next time. Thank you.